So let's get into it. So first and foremost, good morning, and everybody, thank you for joining us today at the inaugural PlaceKeepers Minority Developers Conference. Got a lot of beautiful faces here in person, and even more beautiful faces streaming through the online link. So I just want to thank you all for joining us again this morning. We have 4 or 5 hours of jam-packed, valuable content, information, and resources that we're hoping to bring to you this morning. My name is David Meadows. I am with Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, as well as Cushman and Wakefield, one of our sponsors today. I do want to give a special shout out to Valor Bank, who is our presenting sponsor, as well as Cushman and Wakefield, our platinum sponsor, and then First Security Bank, who is going to be our gold sponsor today. They're the ones that provided us with the resources to be able to host this event in this beautiful facility, bring it to you online, and really give us the opportunity to bring to you the conference that we want to bring to you today. I want to bring up Mr. DeAndre Martin, who is going to be the program director for PlaceKeepers. He's going to give you a little bit of background and context as to what PlaceKeepers is, and then we'll take it from there. So, Mr. DeAndre Martin.
Cool. Thank you all so much for coming out. This is our inaugural PlaceKeepers Minority Developers Conference. As David said, we're here on behalf of Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, a local nonprofit that is seeking to be the catalyst for economic development in Northeast Oklahoma City. And one way we do that is through our PlaceKeepers program. It started as a 4-week program that has turned to a 6-week program of very intentional small cohorts, and we go through everything from sourcing a property to funding a development and going through designs for your project. So we hope this conference gives you a little bit of insight of what we do in those cohorts. We hope that it's inspiration for communities not only on the Northeast side, but in all marginalized communities around Oklahoma City, because we can only have a great city if all of us come together and our communities are thriving, and we need to be the people that set the culture and everything for our community. So we are excited to have you all here to give you insights on that. If you want to learn more about the PlaceKeepers program or to apply to be in the cohort, you can visit neokcr.org/placekeepers. We have an application form on there. And then before I let go, if you are one of our PlaceKeepers alumni or trainer, if you could just stand up real quick so we can give you all a round of applause for being a part of our cohort.
Thank you, DeAndre. So I'm super excited to have you all here today. We're going to have about 4 or 5 different sessions in which we're going to be talking on things from construction to design to engaging with public agency. We're going to open up our sessions by bringing up Dr. Quintin Hughes with Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, and the fantastic Denyvetta Davis with Northeast Oklahoma City Neighborhood Coalition. So if we could give them a round of applause, we're going to introduce them today. And just by show of hands, who in the building today is an emerging or an existing real estate developer? Fantastic. Give yourselves a round of applause. I just want to say congratulations. Being a real estate developer is not an easy thing by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm really excited to have these conversations because I myself in the future will be diving into development. So I think that this is going to be a great framework for both me and for you as well. So I want to start off by asking Dr. Hughes, can you give us a little bit of context as to who you are, what you do, and maybe speak to Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance a little bit more?
Yes, I will. First, I'll shout out to these young men for putting together such an amazing conference. Even though we're just getting started, it's beautiful, man. Y'all did a great job. So again, my name is Quintin Hughes. I am originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, and came to Oklahoma to attend the University of Oklahoma in Norman, and met my wife, so became a permanent Okie. So, during my studies, I had opportunities to travel to different conferences around the country in urban cores, very similar to Oklahoma City, and then even larger metropolitan areas. And what I noticed during those times is, the locations of those conferences would be similar to locations like our downtown. They would be in the middle of gentrifying or gentrified areas that, you could tell had a different history than what the present looked like. And I always wondered, well, I thought, first of all, these are cool concepts, great opportunities to have fun, but I always wondered what it would look like for the same type of revitalization to occur, but with the folks that originally, or that had existed there prior to. And so, once I graduated college and moved on to Northeast Oklahoma City, which is an area like where I came from in Little Rock, there were opportunities to kind of get engaged in what was to come, more specifically the Northeast Renaissance kind of movement. In 2014, there was a passing of a tax increment finance district that basically would help to catalyze development efforts in Northeast Oklahoma City. I was a part of the Black Chamber Board and became a stakeholder there. And that's kind of where the beginning of Northeast Renaissance started. We were called the Northeast Renaissance Stakeholder Committee. At the time, we were just vetting those developments that were coming to the Northeast side. They were asking us, what we thought, kind of felt like they were checking boxes. And as a collective, we felt like there could be an opportunity to do more in learning about those things that were coming online. We wanted to be more engaged as participants, and we were encouraged to formalize and kind of become our own entity that could have more of a focus on being a catalyst. And that's what we did. We formed Northeast OKC Renaissance, Inc. Our mission is to be a catalyst for ethical and place-based community development in Northeast Oklahoma City. And along the way, we have kind of developed and executed on numerous activities and events that were really meant to not only engage the community, to share information about what's to come, but also strongly encourage them to participate and create access to that. And PlaceKeepers is a result of that effort.
So for NE OKC Renaissance, what are some of the goals, programming, and things that you guys have brought to this community in the time that you guys have been an organization?
Yeah, well, it started with One OKC, which is our annual block party. The goal of that was, it was layered in terms of our goals. For one, we wanted to make sure that the community was aware of the numerous real estate development projects that were occurring at the time. 36th and Kelly, Page Woodson. We had some, and several other developments were kind of, either getting going or were in the plans. And we felt like as stakeholders, we learned about it, but there wasn't really that great opportunity to share it with the community. So we kind of partnered with those developers to have them, show renderings and be able to talk to the community about what it was that they were doing. But also, we knew to get people there, we had to entertain them. And so we had that component. We added a component for our families and our kids to be able to play. And so, that was really the initial, activity that we wanted to do. I think another part of One OKC was really trying to announce to the rest of the city that, Northeast Oklahoma City, that we have a vision for the future, and we want this to kind of represent that. And we want you to know about it. We want you to participate in it. So One OKC was the first, and it's kind of been our flagship event. From that, we've had obviously PlaceKeepers, which DeAndre talked about, which is about engagement and participation as well, providing not only that education and insight, but access to capital and access to mentors and experienced people that can kind of walk alongside our placekeepers. And then, you know, we have some other things coming, but those are two of our kind of main pieces. We've also worked to help get a commercial district off the ground in along 23rd, anchored by 23rd, the East End Commercial District. We're still working on that, and we look to support organizations that are building capacity for community engagement, such as the Neighborhood Coalition as well.
That's good. And then, Ms. Davis, you sit on the board for Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, but you are also the president of the Northeast Oklahoma City Neighborhood Coalition. So could you maybe share with us kind of the role that you play within that organization, and I guess the goals, the mission, and the idea for the Neighborhood Coalition?
Yes, I am. Good morning. I'm Denyvetta Davis, president of the Northeast Oklahoma City Neighborhood Coalition. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So yes, I am originally from Muskogee, grew up in a village there, so I know what neighborhoods feel and look like, and know what it's all about. But yes, part of the Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance Board. When we were thinking about forming the coalition, there were 4 neighborhood presidents that began the conversation in January 2020. JFK, Park Estates North, Cash and Wildwood, Northeast Renaissance, and Harrison Walnut. Those are the 4 presidents that started meeting to talk about the coalition. And so as we were thinking about it, talking with Neighborhood Alliance to get their support, we know that we would need a physical agent for our organization because we were new. We're not a 501c3, so we approached the Renaissance. I was already serving on the board, so we thought that that was an ideal partnership that we could form with the Renaissance being our physical agent. We are an independent agency, but we needed a physical agent, so it's been a great partnership. And so with the coalition, when we started talking about it, so many things were going on in our neighborhood that we didn't know about. Maybe one person knew and nobody else knew. And so we knew that we needed to come together so that we could unite as existing neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are some are traditional, where you have a president and officers, and some have leadership teams. So we knew that we needed to come together, have a space where developers, elected officials, and others could come and share information with neighborhoods all in one space, still talking to the individual neighborhoods, but be able to come and talk to collective neighborhood leaders. Also provide training for neighborhoods that are existing, some that are new. Also to assist in training and providing input and information, collaborate with other organizations and other leaders. So the coalition has been formed. Like I said, we started in 2020 early, and then the COVID hit. We were meeting in person. Then we started meeting via conference call, and then Zoom. And so we meet the second Thursday of each month. We have some great meetings. Right now there are 14 presidents or team leaders that are represented in the coalition. One of those is what we're calling an associate member, because they're not an organized neighborhood, but they are wanting to organize their neighborhood. So we come together and we learn, we grow, we have speakers, and so the coalition has so far been a great organization, great partnership. We are forming new partnerships, Metro Tech and other organizations, to provide training and other supports for neighborhoods. So we are excited about the coming together of our neighborhoods, because neighborhoods make up the community, And so we need to be informed. We need to know what's going on. We need for our voices to be heard. We need to share information, and so we're excited about that.
Yeah, that's all really good stuff. And you said something that I really want to touch on, and then Dr. Q, you also mentioned something. Dr. Q, you had mentioned this thing of ethical placemaking development, and then Ms. Davis, you had mentioned that, you know, the neighborhoods are what really form the community. And for everybody out there that's a real estate developer, I think it's important because there's this conversation, there's this narrative that I hear often in terms of real estate development, of these developers coming into an area and just bringing new projects online, and there's a lot of pushback from the public, or there's a lot of grievance that's created because of their lack of having an ear for what the community needs or what they want to see. So could you two, from your perspective, speak to the importance in terms of why developers should be engaging with organizations like neighborhood coalitions or organizations like Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, so that the development that they're bringing to the community is beneficial and it integrates into the existing legacy and heritage of a community? And I want to say that because a lot of the information and conversations that we're going to be having today is kind of dependent on the northeast side of Oklahoma City, because that's the world that we're in. But the reality is that this is going to be a very similar conversation in any community that you go to. So if you're here in Oklahoma City, whether it's South OKC or kind of on the outskirts like Spencer and Jones and those communities as well, it's all going to be kind of plug and play. So don't think that the conversations that we're having here only apply to the northeast side of Oklahoma City. They really apply to any minority community that's seeing some type of renaissance or resurgence or transformation. So if you two could speak to the importance of why real estate developers need to be engaging with you to bring ethical community building development to an area.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start, because what's important about this is relationship building. It's just like any other relationship. I mean, you wouldn't walk in somebody's home and, you know, not know who they are or know anything about them. So it's important that real estate and developers get to know the neighborhood. I mean, and at the very beginning, not when you're in the middle, not when you're taking it to the planning commission or to the city council, but at the very beginning. And I can share just kind of briefly, as I mentioned, I'm president of JFK, and as you know, there's lots going on in JFK, lots of development. We've had Dunbar Commons, which renovated the Dunbar School. It's housing for seniors. We were on the ground floor with that. The developer brought the renderings to us. We talked about it, asked what we need. Also Page Woodson, they're starting phase 4 fairly soon. We were on the ground floor of that, and just to kind of show you how that partnership works. If you've been to Douglas 1 in the multi-purpose room in the basement, you'll see a kitchenette, which is on the east end of that room. That was something that the neighborhood suggested. It was not part of the original plan, but when we talked to the developer and they were talking about what do you think we need, then we talked about having that little kitchenette there, so when organizations would use that space, they would have, you know, a refrigerator and some other things. So it's important that you talk to, learn the neighborhood, come to the meetings, be involved, be a good neighbor. I mean, you're coming to the neighborhood, and if you start off wanting to be a good neighbor, you'll have a good ending. Neither party may get everything that they want, but you have to start at the very beginning, not in the middle, not at the end. Getting to know the neighborhood, knowing the neighbors, attending events, being involved in the neighborhood. You want to be a good neighbor. That's what it's all about. You know, just because you're a business, just because you're a developer, just because you're a real estate developer, doesn't mean that you can't be a good neighbor. You may not know anything initially other than you have some cheap land that you bought. And so, yes, it's key. Those relationships, building those early is key.
I don't know if I have much to add to that, but, you know, and it's not about developers having to go through us. I mean, I think what we represent is generally, a neighborhood or a community's representation. And so, as developers look to engage with, with specific, properties, whether they be urban, like infill, vacant lots in a neighborhood, or, some vacant apartment complex, or even a vacant retail shopping center, I think the ethical place-based piece of things is really to first understand that people exist there. There's a community and a culture that exists in the place that you intend to build. And to Ms. Davis's point, it's going to be in your best interest to get to know those people. Do your research, obviously do your due diligence, but build those relationships so that those folks that you're going to be, living, working, or playing next to, so that you can be welcome there versus, you just kind of coming in and taking what you want and using more extractive practices where you just saw some cheap land and you saw an opportunity to go extract wealth from that community versus being additive to it. And so I think that's why neighborhood organizations are great to be connected with, and that's why organizations like a Northeast Renaissance or similar organizations that are community development corporations or whatnot on different sides of town that are there to kind of represent stakeholders where they're from.
Have either of you two, with the resurgence and some of the transformation and renaissance on the northeast side of Oklahoma City, have you seen, are there any specific examples or projects or developers that have engaged with you all that left a positive reaction in terms of just new projects that are coming online in this community?
Yeah, for sure. What was it that you referenced? What was the building?
Page Woodson.
Yes. So to start, I would say that the Page Woodson development definitely made a great effort to engage with that JFK community in several ways, from even their partners that are helping in the design and programming of the space to always looking to collaborate with different community events and activities. And so I would say they're an example of the type of effort that you want to be making to build relationships with the community and to have an ongoing, sustainable or sustained relationship with them. I'd also add, like from a commercial or retail standpoint, if you look at the East Point development and what Pivot has done with over in that kind of Ross Heights area, the way that they kind of constructed their model in, sharing ownership with their tenants, focusing on tenants that reflected what the kind of the makeup of the community, and also kind of engaging in those cultural activities that were kind of already embedded in that community. So those are two examples that I would mention.
Yes, definitely Page Woodson. That's an ongoing relationship with JFK. If there's anything, they keep us updated. They attend our meetings. They send out information. I know just recently, for example, there was going to be some soil trucking in the area, not through the actual neighborhood, but we needed to let neighbors know that we were notified. We walked the neighborhood, those streets that were impacted by that, and so we were able to spread that word. So yes, that Page Woodson relationship is a great one. And then the Dunbar Senior Commons, that's another relationship in JFK that I can speak about. Again, we started from the very beginning and the relationship continues. We also have Fairhaven, which is a gated community. We also have Fairgrounds, which is apartments. So we have relationships with all of those in the neighborhood. And then some of our neighborhoods that are part of the coalition share information about some of those relationships. Not all of them are good, but there are lots of positive things going on as well throughout the Northeast Oklahoma City.
A shout out to Homeland, our new grocery store up 36th and Lincoln. They've done some things. You walk into Homeland, you know they on the east side. They've partnered with, they got Leos in there. If you go down the aisles, they have them named after, folks that are legacies or neighborhoods that are legacies in Northeast Oklahoma City. So, honoring that legacy, things like that, like being a willingness to kind of engage in that. Those are some of the components of, kind of ethical approaches.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'm hearing a lot from what you two are touching on from your perspective. As a real estate developer, it sounds like being attentive to a community and truly understanding their heritage, their legacy, their needs, but then also as a developer, having a willingness to take that first step to engage with community stakeholders so that they have a voice at the table of these conversations around real estate development. Are there any other, encouraging words that you would want to share with any aspiring real estate developer out there that they can, take and kind of put into their tool chest of tools as they start tackling and approaching new projects?
Yeah, I'd say, if you've adopted the kind of the paradigm that a lot of real estate investor, kind of workshops or whatever will tell you, like, oh, just go in at the press community, buy the land, flip it, you know what I mean? Make your money, go to the next, or not flip it, lease it to, rent it out to the community and, minimize how much money you have to put into it so you can maximize what your profit is. I would challenge you to throw that away. You know what I mean? Like, that would be my challenge for you. Understand that you're going into communities where people live, think about it like you would think about the community you live in and how you would want people to treat, your place, you know what I mean? Where, where your family rests their heads. Think about it in a way that, is this a place, or am I doing things to this place that I would want done to the place, to my place? Would I live here? Would I want to be a part of this? I've been introduced recently to this idea of empathetic design. And that's an approach where obviously empathy is central to it. And so add empathy to your tenets of how you practice, to the tenets of your practice, I should say. Add empathy to that.
Yes, I would say be kind, be thoughtful, be considerate. You're part of a neighborhood somewhere, and so you just want to come in and be those things, be positive. Know that people are, there's history in the Northeast Oklahoma City community that has not always been good. And so you have to remember that people are fearful, they're thinking that you're going to take their property. I mean, there are all kinds of perceptions, negative perceptions, so you have to be mindful of that. We can't just dismiss it. It happened, it's history, and so we have to move on from there. But so just be mindful and be thoughtful and considerate about this community that you're going into, because people have all kind of perceptions and misperceptions and ideas about things, the way that they want to see it. It may not match with what you want to see, so you have to be mindful of that. So be kind, be thoughtful, be considerate about every development that you're considering, every neighborhood that you're going into, because these are human beings who have lots of thoughts and feelings and fears. So, yes.
That's good. So I guess if you were to close your eyes and just envision what Northeast Oklahoma City looks like 10 years from now, what are some things that you hope to see out of this community?
Safe, healthy, flourishing neighborhoods, because the neighborhoods make up the community. Without that, we're going to be where we've been. So yes, we need to be safe, and you're safe. One of the things that will help you be safe is to know your neighbors. Like I said, I grew up in a village, so I know what that looks like and feels like, and you know your neighbors. know that everybody's busy, and sometimes you get up in the morning, go to work, you come back and go in your, open your garage, go in, and you're there. But be part of the neighborhood. Know what's going on. Be engaged. There's lots of activities going on in every neighborhood. So, yes, safe, healthy, flourishing neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Add to that flourishing part. I mean, I just think vibrant, a vibrant like model of what an inclusive, or what a community looks like when they've had an inclusive model or inclusive participation and opportunities for for the folks that live there to be a part of that revitalization. I see mostly homeowners residing in the homes. I see folks that look like the folks that live there now, living there with with living wages, with living wage jobs, and a sense of safety and a sense of community, a sense of belonging. I see our retail centers thriving. I see people walking up and down the streets, and our culture reflected throughout. I see the economy booming around and the dollar being passed around more times than it is now, a lot more times than it is now. And so, I see our main corridors thriving. I see, 4th Street, I see 36th, I see 23rd, Martin Luther King. I see all of those with, that land is no longer vacant in between. You got businesses that are flourishing there. And folks from all across the country trying to come to Northeast Oklahoma City to see what they did and how they did it.
Yeah, and I see a self-contained community. Back in the day, we were self-contained, and everything that we needed was right here in Northeast Oklahoma City. And you could certainly leave the community if you chose to, but everything was right there. You could walk, as you said, walkability. You could ride your bike. If you're in a motorized vehicle, it's safe for you to do that. So yes, self-contained, where you can walk to the to the grocery store, or you could have parks that are safe. So a self-contained community is what I envision.
That's good. That's good. Well, we have a couple minutes, so I think we can ask or open up a Q&A for a couple questions if anybody has any. By show of hands, anybody got questions? Well, Mr. Ron Summers.
Like the property. Another thing is that maybe set up some kind of fund that if these people need a short-term loan to kind of keep those properties, that you could help them out. Or if they want to sell the property, maybe let them sell the property to someone that lives in the northeast quadrant as well.
Thanks for that. That made me realize I kind of sold ourselves short a little bit there. That is a piece, or I said an element of what Northeast Renaissance is attempting to build, specifically that the fund model that's actually a part of PlaceKeepers. We do have what we call a gap fund that our PlaceKeepers have access to if there is a gap that exists between the equity that they, or collateral that they bring to the table on their first real estate project. They would be able to apply and access, short-term gap funds to help, kind of get that financing. So there's that. And then I think the other pieces that you mentioned, those are definitely needs that an organization like ours should be thinking about filling. I think within the kind of PlaceKeepers umbrella, so to speak, I think that something like that would fit there. We have a network of of allies that definitely have experience and knowledge there, and it probably wouldn't take too much to kind of launch that type of opportunity. And so I think that is something to think about and maybe try to get under that PlaceKeepers umbrella. Yeah.
That's good. And right here.
You guys brought up, I thought, a really interesting topic, empathetic design.
In the back.
You talked a lot about empathetic design, which is something I've never really thought about. For some of this, we're just trying to get started in the development process. Is that something you guys can help us with to understand what that is, how that works, what we need to think through? Are there architects that understand the lay of the land that do take that kind of empathetic design approach so that we don't start running down a rabbit hole and realize we end up with something that may not be what's best for the site or the neighborhood itself?
So empathetic design itself, as I mentioned, is a newer concept to me that I think is pretty dope, that is broader than real estate development, but that ethical kind of place-based approach, we do have some experience and partners with experience that can support developers in that effort, in that type of understanding and incorporating that into their developments, yeah.
And the neighborhoods can help with that, the coalition. We're not calling it empathetic design, but we are certainly concerned about that. I mean, we have lots of lots that are available for infill, and so that's certainly something that we have been talking about, and we could probably help you with that. Like I said, we're not calling it that, but yes.
I was, before you said that, an organization that we closely partner with that we would typically refer to on that would be Black Space. They have a lot of research and whatnot and literature on what ethical development looks like, and can definitely be hired as probably consults on stuff like that.
Do you guys keep like a map or like a land bank of like sites that you guys and your organizations have already said, man, it would be great if we had some extra hands to start looking and seeing these sites, so that, if we were trying to figure out, man, you drive around, there's so many opportunities of almost like a roadmap of like, well, here, like, if we were to rank sites that we think would be most additive to the neighborhood to start now, here are the 5 to 10 sites that we think you should take a hard look at because we think they're the best opportunity for success and would really be of most benefit to the entire community.
I would say we don't have a formalized, map that is prioritized in that way. Obviously, the Alliance has maps and things of that nature on their site. There are, I think you'll see here in the next 6 months to a year, kind of some public planning efforts that would do some of that type of thing, but not at this moment do we have.
So I think one of the issues with coming into challenging neighborhoods and minority neighborhoods is
Can't hear you.
when you see development going on as a resident, one of the fears is, if this thing takes off, how is this going to impact the taxes on my property? Do you guys have it? So has anybody put any thought into that and how to address that? Maybe some kind of way to subsidize or protect older residents that, like you said, maybe the property's been passed down to them, and maybe they're not doing so well financially, and just a way to kind of shelter that. Because when it comes to ethics, right, and ethical development, I think maybe some thought might need to go into that. Because it'd be great for the Northeast to flourish, but I sure hate to push out people that have been longtime residents, generational, right? So could maybe you share some information about that? Absolutely.
I know that one of the things that we've talked about, we're partnering with MetroCheck for some training. So information, I think, is key to what you just said. about making sure that the seniors and their family members are aware. I mean, information is power. So I think just making people aware of information that they don't know. So we're working on some training.
Yeah, there's information about ways to kind of freeze what that property tax is for certain aged homeowners and things of that nature. And I feel like there's a lack of knowledge about those types of tools, and also the fact that those property taxes are set up in such a way that they can't just like shoot up the next year. I mean, they're incremental changes. And then also, I think there's going to be information and strategic practices around what else happens when your property taxes increase. Does that mean that the value of your land is increased, because that's what it's based off of? And then what can you do with the value of that? I mean, what can you do with that? How can you tap into that to create either more value or to offset that increase in property taxes? And I think, us as an organization, those are the types of thoughts that we're having, and we're always thinking about our people in our community being displaced, right? So we're always thinking about that, but we want to have solutions that are market-based as well as socially responsible. And so that's kind of where we are right now with that.
And then I think we got time for one more.
I do have a quick question. So thinking about Ms. Davis's concept of self-contained communities, have you surveyed the community citizens to find out what they would like to see on the Northeast side?
We've had conversations about certainly more grocery stores. We certainly need something on 23rd and MLK to service that community. Hardware store, just a variety of businesses. I mean, shoe repair, appliance repair, those kinds of things. Because we've had, used to have TG&Y and all those stores there, beauty shops. We have plenty of those. But yeah, just where anything that you need, you can find it in the community, and you don't have to, unless you choose to, leave the community. All those businesses that we had back in the day, many of them are gone. And so, yes, just having those amenities, those businesses that can be restaurants, definitely, yes.
Yeah, and I'd say that we typically survey the community at like our larger events, like with like formal surveys, but also many others. Like the community gets surveyed or has been surveyed a lot, like surveyed to death. So I think engagement looks like more than a survey, right? There are going to be other ways that we're going to have to kind of capture the desires and the needs. And as I mentioned, in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to see a planning effort that's going to really engage the community as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for spending some time with us, just having a conversation. My biggest takeaways, and I hope they're your biggest takeaways as well from the conversation that we just had. As a real estate developer, it is of the utmost importance that if you're going to be developing in minority or marginalized communities, that your approach might have some contrast to what you would see in non-minority communities. And what I mean by that is there's importance on your willingness to engage with the community at a personal level so that you can bring projects online that both benefit and integrate into the community, but also allow it to see future growth and transformation. As a real estate developer, there's importance in terms of how you engage with existing organizations so that you can get information and knowledge so that projects that you consider bringing to a community, you're just equipped to know what that needs to look like. And I think the biggest message that I've heard from this conversation is just care. I get it. You know, real estate development, it's a business and we all have to make a living and numbers have to pencil out. But I think that there's also margin and space for you to care about your development, care about the community that your development's going to be placed, and then that there's ways, you might have to get creative, but there's ways to make sure that not only can you win from a financial perspective, but your project can be a win for the community as a whole. So again, thank you both for taking the time to have this conversation. We're gonna go into a quick restroom break. What I really wanna encourage you all to do today, if you have time, and what I would challenge you to do is, we're in a room of about 45, 50 people. That's a small enough room to where you should know at least 5 new people today by the time you leave than you knew before you walked in. At the end of the day, the information, these discussions, these panels, yes, they're gonna be educational. Yes, you're gonna walk away with new nuggets of information that are gonna help you in your real estate journey. But in the business of the built environment, it's all predicated on relationships. And there's people that are in this room today that are gonna help you or assist you on your journey towards building ethical developments and building flourishing communities that you need to be tapped in with. It takes a village, right, to make sure that things are functioning how they need to function. So I want to encourage you during these restroom breaks and during these breaks between sessions, introduce yourself to people, have conversation, because that's what, when you walk out this door 2, 3, 4 years from now, the information that you got from these sessions, you're probably going to see at other places, but the relationships that you can foster, the relationships that you can build from this day, that's what's really going to carry you far. So again, thank you both.
Can I say something real
yeah.
quick? Somebody asked a question, and now that you mentioned, like, you know, networking, I would say those of you who are interested in like an ethical approach, I would say this is a step, like being in a place like this, you know, around with community members that are interested in engaging, meeting those people, building relationships right here in this room. I think that's a step in the process, and you know, there'll be several along the way. But great job on the first step.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
all. If
man.
we could give them a round of applause, that'd be great.